Hello, everybody. Welcome to the World of Positivists, the positive podcast coming from Positive Vibes Magazine. We're super excited to have a special guest today, Mike Shoreman, who is a motivational speaker who has spoken at many different events, and we're super excited that he's able to come on our podcast today. So, how are you doing today, Mike?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today, Zane.
Of course. So, to begin the conversation, just tell us a bit about yourself and who you are and like what you represent.
Awesome. Sweet. So my name is Mike Shoreman. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I I uh you know, I so that's not a smooth transition. I'm freezing. Um so I am a motivational speaker. I'm an author. I'm a writer. I speak and write on mental health, and our mindsets, and where we can go when we live life with a glass half full mentality.
Mhm.
I'm a former paddleboarding coach with Paddle Canada.
Wow.
I taught and competed professionally. And in 2018, I lost my sense of balance. I had a reactivation of my chickenpox virus from when I was a kid, and it affected my facial nerve, and my face collapsed, and I lost my sense of balance. And the doctors said I would never paddleboard ever again. They said I wouldn't do many things. They said I wouldn't ever go on a plane again. I wouldn't do car trips. I wouldn't do many things.
Mhm.
And through positive thinking and shifting where my energy was going, I was able to overcome all of that. And with some mental health treatment and a lot of physiotherapy, where I learned how to retrain my brain how to walk properly again.
Mhm.
I um I was able to go out and do those things again. And today, it's been just over 2 years since all of that happened, and a lot of people look at me in that situation, and they're like, "You lost your business. You lost your independence. Your parents had to look after you. You were financially ruined. Um, and like, how did you do that? How did you come out of that so quickly?" And I did a talk. My first talk ever was just over a year ago, and it was at Canada's largest inspirational speaking competition. And I did a talk about how every yes that we say to ourselves when we don't think that we can do something leads us to our next yes. It gives us confidence, and it gives us power, and
Mhm.
it fuels us with encouragement, and it helps propel us forwards. And I won that night, um, that that talk, and that talk has done so much for my career, um, for my health, um, and it's brought me, that talk has gone viral on several platforms like Power Positivity.
Mhm.
Ashton Kutcher, the actor, he put it on his platform. Jay Shetty put it on his platform, Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it's been, going viral um, was a great experience. But the real special thing about it was that wasn't that millions of people saw my speech. It
Mhm.
was that there were thousands and thousands of comments about how it was a universal message and how it touched them. And people were sharing their stories with me about,
Mm.
what they were going through. So, people might not have my condition, but they probably have a condition of their own, or they know somebody who's gone through something significant. And it just kind of showed me how we're all connected,
Mm.
and how we are all human and we all go through the same things.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing, Mike. It's beautiful. What a great way to start. I'll just, ask the question, what inspired you to do this speaking competition? I'm curious, did you have prior experience in speaking before? Or was this really like your first time really speaking publicly on this like big stage? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So no, I didn't. No, I gave a really bad valedictorian speech in college. It wasn't good. You can ask anybody, anybody who was there. It was really, um, yeah, it was a bad speech. And then I just kind of, went down. I got very involved with, my career, paddleboarding, and starting my own business, and I never really entertained the idea. I was brought in by the Canadian Safe Boating Council. They do safety demonstrations for the media every Memorial Day,
Mm,
because that's kind of the kickoff to boating season. So they want to educate the public on safety.
mm,
So they do a big media blitz here in Canada, and they contacted me and they said, we'd really like for you to do safety demonstrations and interviews with the media. So I kind of got comfortable with talking in front of people. Um, and I was also, teaching people how to do a skill, um, like individually and in groups.
mhm.
So that led to my comfortability. But no, I'd never ever really done a big talk before. So that night was, 300 people,
Mm,
and
wow.
I think I went in with the idea that if I could touch three people, I would be happy. Um and um I've never really expected what happened next. It was beautiful.
Wow, yeah, it really is. And so what pushed you to speak at the event? Did someone like nominate you? Did someone tell you about the competition? Did they reach out? How'd that work?
So I went to visit a friend, and I was just in the neighborhood of her work,
Mhm.
and and um and I thought, well, I'll just go in and I'll just say hi. I was still using a cane to walk. When I lost my sense of balance, I wasn't moving. I could barely walk for months from the living room to the kitchen. Um, but by April, late April, um, I was using a cane to walk. I was moving slowly. My face had collapsed, so I was still very, um, what's the word? Um, Cautious about going out. I didn't like people, I was very sensitive to people looking at me,
Mhm.
because there was staring and there was pointing and there was comments.
Wow.
And I was wearing an eye patch because I couldn't blink my eye. So it was to protect it. So I looked like a pirate with a walking cane, and I went in to say hi, and she said, "What are we gonna do with you?" And and I said, What do you mean?" and she said, I know you. You are one of the most driven people I've met, and you're not done. This isn't the end of your story. You've got a huge story here.
Mhm.
And I'm going to send you some information for this thing that I heard of, called Speaker Slam.
Mm.
So I said, okay. And then, I went home and she sent it to me, and I look up this Speaker Slam, and it's Canada's largest inspirational speaking competition. And 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 so it's 10 speakers going head to head in a competition, in front of 300 people, and they're giving a speech, on a different theme, or on a different theme every month. So this theme was courage. And I sent in my application, and I thought, okay, well, we'll just see. And and then I found out that I was accepted and that they were going to take me. And then I thought, oh wow, like this is really exciting. And
Yeah.
then I looked, and I realized that these were all TED Talk speakers, and these were all speakers who do this for a living. And
Hmm.
I thought, oh no, what did I just do? Like, this is the worst. I'm not in a great position um to take a big fail right now. So I better
Mhm.
buckle down and start writing something good. So I really committed myself to, like, I think I spent, um I think I rehearsed that speech. I wrote it, and it took weeks. It took 6 weeks to write that speech.
Mm.
Um and then I rehearsed that speech out loud about 350 times, because I wanted to get it right, and I
Mhm.
wanted to really try my best. But I was just hoping to kind of make a few people see themselves in it, and to tell a story, and to inspire and motivate people when they're really struggling, and to let them see that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Great. Wow. Um, Question. So, how did it feel speaking at the competition itself? How did it feel on stage talking about you're actually up there? You rehearsed this, like you said, 150 times. How did it feel to finally be up there?
So that's really interesting because, um, I had a coach for it, and
Mm.
I rehearsed it with her a couple times before I did it. And she came up to me afterwards, and it's weird. I got a 5 minute standing ovation at the
Oh
end of
my
the
gosh.
speech.
Wow.
Um, it, they've said, I think they've done it for 3 years. So
Hmm.
that's what, 10 events, 10, 11 events a year, so 30. And people said, it's never been that loud.
Wow.
And I lost hearing as part of my condition. So, but I knew it was loud. I could still hear how loud it was. But she came up to me afterwards. She was in the audience, and she said, what was that? It was just like something came into me, and I released everything. It
Hmm.
was the most cathartic, healing, powerful release that I've ever had.
Wow.
Um, it was just like all of the emotional and mental trauma of the 8 months before. My speech, I talked about staying in a mental health treatment facility to process grief and rage and
Hmm.
anger. And and coming out on the other side and not feeling like I was drowning anymore. Um, and how I, you know, getting help was my first yes, and then it led me back to the paddleboard, and that was my second yes, and then I stood up when they said that it wasn't possible, and that was my third yes, and how each yes led to each other, and it just built and built, and it was just one of the most amazing things that I think that I've ever experienced. It was pretty special.
Wow. Um, so my next question is, you mentioned this yes a lot. Can you kind of more elaborate on what that means? Yes, in regards like yes.
So basically, when I used to teach paddleboarding, I talk about it in the speech. Um, you know, I would teach, and people are afraid of paddleboarding. People are afraid of falling in the water, and I
Mhm.
don't know why, because falling in the water is one of the most fun things about paddleboarding. Um, but people would come to my lessons, and they'd be nervous, and they'd be awkward, and they'd be, sometimes scared. Um, and throughout my lessons, if I had you out there for an hour, you have the most power and confidence when you're on a paddleboard, when your paddle is actually in the water, because it stations you and it grounds you.
Mhm.
And by the end of my lessons, my students would be so confident in themselves, in their skill set, um, that I would tell them to raise their paddles up over their head, um, and I would take out my camera or phone, and I would take a picture of them doing like a warrior pose on their paddleboards, and then I would send it to them. I do it in front of the skyline, and it was, they got amazing pictures. But it was all about how you're not powerful and you're not confident in your abilities when you first start something.
Mhm.
But over the course of time, over the course of that hour, I watched each of them develop more confidently than when they arrived. And that happened to me with my own life collapse, with losing my business and losing, the ability to walk properly, and all of that. So in spite of, doctors saying, you'll never paddleboard again, um, that was crushing when doctors said your face is not going to repair properly, and we're going to go in and have surgery on it.
Mhm.
Um, that was devastating. Um, it pushed me to the brink. Um, and I just, the first time I really said yes to myself was when I said, okay, I'm going to go and get some mental health treatment because I can't do this on my own.
Mhm.
And just by going and getting some help, just by saying yes to what I needed, it gave me the confidence that I could do something else. I felt a power with it. So even though most people, or not most, but a lot of
Mhm.
people attach mental health with a stigma,
Yeah.
I found it very empowering that, okay, I've hit rock bottom.
Mhm.
I've hit rock bottom, and I got through it. And it gave me the confidence to get to that next step. And the next step was getting back on a paddleboard. And I only lasted 3 minutes sitting down. Um, but by being there, by saying yes to the invitation to going there, it allowed me to be in the place where the paddleboards were, which allowed me to get on a paddleboard and try it again. And all of that was just confidence building, and and becoming more powerful, um, in who I was becoming.
Wow. You mentioned, getting help for mental health in terms of, grieving and anger and depression. What are your tips, or what advice do you have for people who, are kind of suffering from grief or anger or depression? Um, and I say suffering as they're really not doing well. I don't want to say that someone who has like clinical depression is
Yeah.
suffering. I don't want it to sound like that,
Yeah.
but just saying, from people who are experiencing these intense emotions, what did
Yeah.
you do that really helped
Um,
you?
so so although I write, I'm a writer first
Mhm.
and foremost, and like I don't have a mental health medical training background, but I do speak about mental health and I do write about it. I've been published in newspapers, and I wrote a book about my mental health journey. But what I say to people mostly is to open up. Um, Find somebody that you feel comfortable with talking about the dark stuff, um, because I didn't. Um, I didn't feel. I didn't feel. I became really numb. I really isolated myself from the world. And if I could go back and not change things, because I don't think that you should. I think I went down that path because I was supposed to. But if I could go back and tell myself something, it would have been to talk to somebody, um, because it helps process. Whether we write it down or whether we talk about it with a trusted family member or a friend. um, it helps us process it, and
Mhm.
it helps the grieving process. I was dealing with a lot of anger. I was um, I missed a 72-hour window for treatment because doctors thought it was something else. And that really affected how this developed, and then the next thing I was being told was all these terrible things, and I lost a lot as a result of that. So there was a lot of rage and there was a lot of anger, and um, because I wasn't talking to anybody, I just let that all pent up, until um, until I just didn't want to be here anymore. um, and and yeah, so I think, I would tell anybody who's listening to be open to the idea of journaling, be open to the idea of talking to people. um, I couldn't really get outside with my condition. I live in Canada, and in that part of my recovery, I wasn't really walking very well, and it was this time last year, and it's icy and snowy, and but for people who are going through mental health stuff, you know going for walks, being in nature is so helpful, whether it's by the water or whether it's a ravine or a forest or even just a park. Um, just being outside and getting fresh air and being grateful for the things that I think we place such a focus on the things that we don't have in life. And it's good to have goals. It's great to have goals and ambitions and but to take note of the things that you are grateful for, especially this year. Um,
Mhm.
it makes us happier when we are in gratitude, and we live with gratitude. And um, I didn't really realize that when I was going through my experience. I didn't realize that until I came out on the other side.
Yeah, I love how you touch on to have gratitude for these things because it's hard to stay positive or be happy when you don't recognize the great stuff in your life that you have, even the small stuff that really impact you that you may not even see. And like you said,
Mhm.
it's excellent to have goals. Of course, you always got to have goals.
Yeah.
Um, but I hope they don't. I hope like those goals aren't. You're not expecting them to fill a void that you may be getting somewhere else. Because then I think if you achieve those goals, you may feel the same thing. You feel the void again. So I think it's very interesting.
Yeah. Oh no, like I I understand that completely. There was a goal that I really wanted to hit this past year. Um and that was to, I wrote a book called Crash and Rise: Diaries of the Unbalanced Paddleboarder. It's now available at Barnes and Noble and Amazon and Indigo, and it's it was launched in the fall. You know I'm crazy. I launched books in a global pandemic. Um,
Yeah.
but there were certain goals that I had with that, and I decided, okay, I want to focus on writing more.
Mhm.
So I was like, I want to write um, different articles about mental health, and I want to get them published in newspapers, like not just regular, like the big newspapers.
Mhm.
And I did. Um, and then and it's almost like you're on this high, um, and then it fades,
Yeah.
and then it's like, what's next?
Mhm.
so 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 it's important to write down, what you are grateful for, and to really take stock in that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what unique experiences the pandemic has introduced, have been, it's sad to see, loved ones dying or all these horrible things happening, but I think the pandemic has helped us stay grounded in our community and like
Hmm.
seeing that we are a community of people and we're not very different as we claim to be. We're very, very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that a lot of us, I'm not gonna speak for everyone, but me, like I've definitely taken things like for granted, the small
Yeah.
things in life. And I think we all do that. And I think
Yeah.
hopefully the pandemic has given us this platform or time to, you know, really think about what those things we're grateful for. Um,
Yeah.
and just move forward with that.
Oh
So
no, I think that we as people have far more in common than we have in what's keeping us apart. Um, just for example, so part of my story, I just did a recent talk about it. It's in my book. But one of the things that I did to kind of normalize what I was going through was, I looked up other people who had my condition. and and it was important for me to put a face on it because it's called Ramsay Hunt syndrome. It's it's a weird it's kind of rare. Um, but for me, it was important to, I thought, okay, maybe there's a musician, maybe there's an actor who has this, just somebody that has it. And so I started Googling and I found the founder of P90X, the fitness program, Tony Horton. He's like a celebrity fitness guru, and he trains celebrities. And I was familiar with him from being on Entertainment Tonight and a bunch of TV shows. So then I looked him up online, and I saw that P90X has millions of followers, and he has hundreds of thousands of followers, and although I have a big following, but it's nothing like that. And but with my face collapsed and not being able to walk, I was in a very vulnerable emotional state. And I thought, well, I'll write to him, but he's probably very busy and he probably won't have time and maybe he won't be that nice. But you never know. Um, and then he wrote back to me. Um, and now he's one of my biggest cheerleaders. He motivated me and and kind of lit a fire in me to go out and do the things that I wanted to do, even though I kind of put up roadblocks. But it just kind of goes to show, like, I might be a paddleboarder in Canada, um, but he's in California and he's like kind of like celebrity, and we're all just kind of the same. like we're all just people, and we're all just going through the same things
Yeah.
every day. Um, you know, deciding, what's next to eat and who who we have to call and what work we have to do, and we're all just people.
Yeah, and I think it all begins to like your point at the very at kind of near the beginning, or when we were talking about mental health. I mean, when you said like one of the things about mental health is just putting yourself out there, talking to someone, and I think
Yeah,
when you start the conversation, it just keeps rolling out
yeah,
with all these other people, and so just as something as simple as having a conversation can totally transform someone's life. I think there's something
absolutely.
really interesting about that.
Yeah,
Um,
it also gives space. Like if I say to you, I like it if we're good friends, and I say, like, Zane, like, I really need to talk to you, um and and you listen to me, um you're also holding space, um
mhm.
and the relationship deepens, and it makes you feel safe to kind of confide in me, what you're going through. And there's so, especially you know with mental health and men in particularly,
Mhm.
um you know men are men significantly struggle more with mental health,
Mhm.
because they don't talk about it, and that is changing as we go along,
Mhm.
but we still have a long way to go, I think.
Yeah. Um, there definitely needs to be an increase in, these spaces for men to talk about their mental health and just bringing up the suicide statistic alone with over 70% of suicide, completions, not attempts,
Yeah,
but completions are by men. And this is not to say like one gender is going through more than the other. It's just saying
No,
that
no.
this is the disparity and we all need to work
Yeah,
together to address this.
yeah, yeah. No, I work with a mental health organization in Canada. Actually, next I do an annual fundraising event. That actually, when my speech went viral, and it's a story on mental health. You know, when millions of people saw that speech, um, paddleboarders from all over the world started taking pictures of themselves on the water in their locations, holding their paddles up.
Oh,
Um, and it became the paddles up movement. There have been thousands of them. And they were raising their paddles to me, and they were raising their paddles to people struggling and to mental health. And that birthed the paddles up movement. And that actually culminated in me becoming this year's International Stand Up Paddleboarding Man of the Year, which is crazy. um,
congratulations.
Thank you. Um, yeah, it's kind of weird. I was nominated with all these world champions and Pan Am Games winners, and it was just nice to be nominated. I wasn't really expecting to win, but it's nice. And this summer, like I've been involved with a mental health organization. It's one of the largest in the country, and
Mm,
I'm an advocate and ambassador for them.
mm,
And I've done, an annual charity event for them. And now I'm planning this coming summer. We're actually launching it this month. Next summer, I will be the first person to paddleboard from the USA to Canada,
wow.
raising funds and awareness for mental health. Um, because mental health is important, and um, and I really believe in the cause. So, yeah.
Wow. Um, Whatever we can do to promote that, love to see, more people donating to that, whatever we can do to help, let us know.
Awesome.
Um,
Thanks.
I'm curious on, you know, your writing journey. The book that you just said came out in fall. Is this your first book?
Yes.
So how did um what was the process like writing it?
So there was a lot of writing and then a lot of rewriting. The thing is, like, you have to decide. So for me, it's part biographical and then part self-help.
Mhm.
Um, so it was like a combination of both elements. So I had to kind of first of all decide where I wanted the story to start and where I wanted it to end. And I think that's the biggest challenge for most people is the framework of it. And then it's really writing down all the things that you want to cover, like the big events, and then breaking those down.
Mhm.
And then spending time writing about what those events were like, um, and kind of making a timeline and putting it all together. Um, so it was kind of like writing the speech. Um, it was just, putting my pen to the paper and working on that, and then sending it off to the editors. I have an editing team with my publisher,
Wow.
and then they sent back their edits, and there were a lot. They changed a lot. And then I went through what they sent back to me, and I made some changes, and then I sent it back to them, and then they sent it back to me, and then I checked it off. And I was happy. I was happy after three big edits. Um, and then it was launched in the fall. So, but yeah, no, like the editing process on its own took months. Um, but no, very rewarding, and it's had um, a good day. Like it came out in the end of October.
Hmm.
Um, I just premiered it at the Miami International Book Fair.
Oh, wow.
And um, and then there was Christmas and a lot of stuff with the book over Christmas and stuff, and now we're you know getting geared up for 2021 with it. So there will be festivals and shows and author readings at different places and online and virtually, and yeah.
Wow, wonderful. So my next question is, I just want to hear about your paddleboarding, experience, like just on how you got into paddleboarding to begin with, and why you love it so much.
uh Great question. So I I went on a date and we decided to go and try paddleboarding. And and I think the lesson was like 60, it was like an hour, like 60 minutes. And I spent about 40 of those minutes in the water. I was terrible. I was really, really bad. And but I loved it. I thought it was like it reminded me of going to like Splashworks or Wild Waterworks, like as a kid, and I just loved it. I loved falling, and getting back on, and so while for many, that would dissuade them from doing it again, it actually pushed me to wanting to do it more, and so it just became a hobby, and then I went to India on a trip, kind of to find myself. And while I was there, I was in a place where I think I don't even know what I was doing professionally. I wasn't doing much. I was kind of bouncing around from doing different things, and I was there, and I was in Varanasi, which is a really holy city, and they were doing this thing where I went down to the water, down to the Ganges River, and I saw hundreds of lotus flowers, and they'd put tea light candles inside them, and they were just floating down the river. And I had this light bulb moment. Like I was just there by myself, just looking at all of these fiery lotus flowers, um, kind of radiating this light. And it was just like this light bulb moment of I want to light up the water. I want to, I want to. It was like I could see that the lotus flower would be the paddleboard, and the candle with the fire, like lighting it up, would be the people on top of it. And I thought, I want to go back and I want to start my own business. And I want to make this an experience. And I want to do it in front of the skyline at sunset with the planes landing on top of them. And I want to give people the opportunity to really shine bright and crush it. um, and then I spent the next several years doing that, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Wow, so beautiful about the story where you were in India. I love the what was it, lighting the world?
Light up the water, light up the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Wow. So my last question is, really just, did you have anything else you wanted to mention? Any last advice, last minute words that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah. So this year has been an incredibly trying year for all of us. I think that this global pandemic has affected us in ways that many of us haven't even really realized.
Mhm.
And I think that we probably won't realize the extent of how it has affected us for many years. Um, but like just for example, when the day comes where we can take off our masks and you know hug each other and stuff, like
Mhm.
I think just like I think I will be emotional from like the first time I go to hug somebody. I think it'll be really emotional.
Yeah.
And I think it will be for quite some time. um so this has affected us on so many levels. And it's been, whether it's affected you financially, whether it's affected you emotionally. um we have the power. We can all go through challenges and obstacles, but I am a firm believer in that the challenges and the struggles that we go through make us stronger, and that there is a reason for our struggle, and that we will come out of this on the other side. um, and we'll be okay. And that attitude is a big part of that. I do my best to keep the news, like I watch the news regularly, but I don't keep it on all day. I limit my social media intake, um, so that I'm not caught up all in it, because it can be really unhealthy mentally. So, but I think if you just try to live through this period that we're all going through in a positive way, and look at it and be grateful for what we have, um, we'll be okay, and we'll get through this.
Mhm.
Um, if anybody wants to, they can find me on Instagram. I'm at the unbalanced paddleboarder. And my speeches can be found on there, or they can be found on YouTube. My book, Diaries of the Unbalanced Paddleboarder, Crash and Rise, is available at Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, pretty much most places. And I think that kind of covers it.
It does. um, Thank you so much, Mike. It was great hearing your story, and thank you so much for, having the courage to share it with, so many people and inspiring a lot of people.
Thanks, Zane. Thank you.
You're welcome.